some very positive things have come out of the whole, digital publishing revolution, right? I think for me, the one that is the most, properly aligned was David Shapiro, who kind of made his name doing Pitchfork reviews, a blog where he was hypercritical of Pitchfork's, music reviews, and went off on a variety of tangents related to his own life and to the things he experienced in New York. That culminated in a very strange kind of exercise he did called the World's Perfect Zine, where he tried to make this kind of, tribute to the 1990s era of photocopied 8x11 zines that were then, folded in half and stapled on the center. And he got some big names involved in it. He was able to corral people from the Wall Street Journal. I mean, I don't know how many bylines they had in the Wall Street Journal, but it let David Shapiro put the Wall Street Journal on the back of the zine. The main guy from the All, and a number of other contributors, but basically David was the only one who was really in tune with the topic, with the subject matter, because he seems to have grown up, very much in line with the whole, mid to late 1990s New York, wasteoid culture that, Harmony Korine and Gus Van Sant, Larry Clark, very famously documented in Kids. David getting hired by Interview magazine is an example of the internet having brought a personality and a talent to light who was perfect for the kind of editorial voice and the sovereign brand of Interview, because David is an absolutely masterful observational writer. It's not like he just cooks you dinner. He builds the house, he does the interior design, he cuts the carrots, he makes the soup. It's a 7-course meal. I don't know many people that have come up in my age bracket that can do the things he does. He's really remarkable. And I'm incredibly happy that, Interview recognized that and recognized that what he was doing is something that they were also known for doing. And that to me is, it's a corny word, but it's a synergy that to me is extremely exciting. And it was something I was extremely happy to see happen. The other side of that is when someone like Nitsa Baby just fails upwards and becomes the New York Magazine music critic. Nitsa is someone that I have repeatedly called out as a poacher, as, a soft aggregator of, harsher material from his peers. Nitsa's latest feature for New York Magazine is 6,000 words long. It's about a band called Grizzly Bear, who were, most of the world has never even heard them. And if they have, they don't know that they've heard them. Their biggest exposure to date was a Volkswagen commercial that played during the Super Bowl. Most of the people who watched it were watching the Super Bowl, and they thought that that music was made for the commercial. And not that many of them were really concerned with finding out whether or not it was made for the commercial and buying the album that it might have come from. Because Grizzly Bear haven't sold that many albums. They're good guys, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But it was extremely obvious that Nitsu approached them with a slant in mind. And that slant was, has Grizzly Bear really made it? What's making it in 2012? Do they have day jobs? And he went in there with this slant where he was going to talk to them about how much money they've made. It's a completely ugly question to ask someone who's trying to traffic in the arts. Well, how much money have you made? They didn't want to talk about it. Story's over. Can the fucking piece, man. But he didn't. And his editor didn't. And so you get 6,000 words with no fucking money shot. It's really painful when someone forces their pitch on a band. And Grizzly Bear completely knew what he was up to. And they wouldn't go there. That's their choice. He should have fucking known that before he went out there to make the piece. But you know, he didn't sniff it around. So now you got now you got this dead end 6,000 word fucking tombstone sitting in the middle of New York Magazine. It's even got some chart porn attached to it, where they've gone and pulled like 10 SoundScan entries. They've tried to make all these analogies about levels of success and how that translates into album sales and chart position and all this stuff. And I was reading it and I'm thinking, man, this is fucking exactly what I wrote in May of 2010 when I talked about, Joanna Newsom, who is at that time was dating Andy Samberg and had been in People magazine and was getting a lot of weird crossover kind of attention, but hadn't sold dick. I look at that piece, I look at Nitz's piece, and there was another piece, where's the editor? Because they don't have it. It's not there. They thought Grizzly Bear was going to pull out their fucking financial statements and be like, oh, well, this is exactly what it's like to be a working band in today's day and age. Nobody's ever going to fucking do that. Why would you? What do you gain from that? Hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a band for a number of years. I'm going to put out a bunch of records, and then I'm going to totally fucking subsume my identity. So, Nitsa Baby can pretend that he's on top of where it's at in fucking pop music today. I mean, the level of entitlement and arrogance in this fucking piece is shocking. And the thing that really galls me is there's no context. It's just, nobody sells anything now. Here's a bunch of numbers. Grizzly Bear aren't rich. I don't know how much money they make. Some of them don't have insurance. I'm going to say that 4 or 5 times because it makes it seem like they're living on the edge. I mean, every single conclusion that is presented in this article is one that he had already formed. You can't fucking do that. There's no point in that piece that I feel like this guy was even interested in having his perspective altered by this band. Who's the fucking subject of the piece? Way to go. Unless you can present a context by which there is a compelling conclusion to draw about what these sales figures and what their income level and what their status means relative to another point in the history of pop music, what are you talking about? Now, I just don't want to sit here and rail on this guy because actually Nitsa has a Tumblr. And his Tumblr is where he puts all of his best writing, his most honest writing. He has called out other critics that he felt were indulging in moments of, histrionic hypocrisy. And just generally has written some really captivating personal stuff. It's a much greater dichotomy than, say, Mark Richardson, the editor-in-chief of Pitchfork, whose Tumblr is, again, I think more attractive than his writing on the site. But it's not like it's a backstage pass to what the guy really thinks. And so you really get the sense that, like, this guy thinks he's creating, there's classic rock and then there's classic rock criticism. And that's the business that he's in. And that so many of these other people that I've known are in. It's trying to recreate the sweep of rock journalism that existed in the past. But that journalism was tied to a medium that made a shitload of money and really changed the way people lived their lives and spent their income. I mean, it was like a real thing. It's not the case anymore. So necessarily the journalism around it loses most of its gravitas as well. You got to roll with that. You can't keep trying to write Cameron Crowe in Almost Famous. I mean, first of all, none of that shit ever even happened. To the extent that it did and was turned into like a nice Hollywood movie that I enjoy very much, it couldn't be farther from the reality we're living in now. So address the reality we're living in now. I gave Julianne Evita Shepard a bunch of shit about her, kind of fawning article about Odd Future in Spin. Because, again, it was like a bunch of journalists reading this thing that, God, it's so incredible. She's on the road with a band, and I bet the magazine's paying for it even. It's amazing. It's over. It's fucking over. And, when I read those articles, it's like listening to a really shitty Oasis